My name is Cole Anderson. I am 40 years of age and was married for 9 years when the events in question occurred. I am an inveterate tinkerer and discovered that a considerable number of people expressed interest in the items I created. I am the author of several patents for gadgets. I sold my patents and, due to my uneasy feelings about the situation, sent the payment to a trust fund until I was able to resolve the issues in my life. At the time, I was 22 years of age and had recently left the military after 3 years of service. After 3 years of service in the Army, I had been a medical equipment repair technician. My experience in the military reinforced my preference for working with and on equipment. I secured a position at a wholesale bakery, repairing bakery equipment during the day and pursuing my college education in electrical engineering at night. I also engaged in intermittent romantic relationships with women from my high school days and those I met after my military service. Upon discharge, I found myself at a local lounge on a Friday night, consuming a beer. I surveyed the crowd and observed one of the women I had met at work in a booth for 4 with a couple of other women. As there were individuals awaiting a place at the bar, I approached Joan Kaiser and inquired if I could share the booth. She consulted with her fellow booth occupants, who concurred. I took a seat and initiated conversation. I was introduced to Sally Cooper and Carol Wunderlich, who were seated in a booth with their respective companions. I found Sally to be quite impressive, though Carol did not elicit the same positive response. I did not dislike Carol, however, I felt a certain discomfort in her presence. She was not unfriendly nor did she engage in any particularly snarky behavior. We simply did not seem to have a compatible dynamic. Sally kindly moved over so that I could sit in the adjacent booth. Joan and I had the opportunity to catch up with each other. In the context of my professional life, I attempted to initiate a dialogue with Carol, but we were unable to establish a meaningful connection. While Sally was attentively listening as I attempted to engage Carol in conversation, she quickly realized that our interaction was ineffective. She then requested that I relocate to allow her access to the restroom. Given the circumstances, with multiple women present, it was evident that a committee meeting was underway. Consequently, I found myself alone in the booth. However, the women present did extend an invitation for me to safeguard their belongings upon the conclusion of the meeting. Subsequently, Joan returned. She then proceeded to remove Carol's belongings from the premises. She informed Sally and me that Carol was indisposed and that she was taking her home. This left me with Sally in a rather awkward situation. I inquired of Sally whether she wished to depart or whether I should leave. She declined, expressing gratitude for my efforts to engage in conversation with Carol. It transpired that Carol had discovered her fiancé's infidelity with an old acquaintance and was, at least temporarily, disinclined towards all men. We eventually engaged in conversation. The remainder of the evening proceeded as though there were no other individuals present. After consuming a moderate quantity of beer and pizza over the course of a couple of hours, I successfully persuaded Sally to divulge her phone number, and I promised to contact her upon our departure. I extended her an offer of transportation, which she declined. She had her own vehicle, and she had not previously ridden with Joan. I contacted Sally the following day and proposed a date for the subsequent weekend. We attended a theatrical performance at a local theater group venue. Prior to this, she had never attended a live play. After the performance, we proceeded to a restaurant for a late dinner. The meal was excellent, and it led to further dates. After a couple of weeks, we began dating exclusively until I obtained my degree. I then secured employment with a local electrical contracting company as an assistant engineer. I subsequently proposed marriage, and she accepted. 18 months later, we were married. Carol served as the maid of honor, and Joan was the bridesmaid. The wedding was a splendid affair, and the reception was a particularly enjoyable one. As previously stated, I have been engaged in tinkering since my high school days, and I have several patents for bakery and commercial restaurant equipment, which the industry has been kind enough to recognize. I established a company to manage these activities while I was employed as a construction electrical engineer. I had set it up so that all of the proceeds were placed in a company account, which afforded me a certain degree of financial independence. I was able to purchase the house we were renting through the company account. Things proceeded well for approximately 2 years. I was then promoted to lead engineer on a significant construction project. Sally had secured employment at an office in the local area. She believed that, given our financial stability, it was an appropriate time to start a family. We attempted a range of methods to conceive, but were unsuccessful. After 3 years, we sought the advice of a specialist, who diagnosed a low sperm count and poor motility. This resulted in a significant decline in our intimate life. We consulted with a specialist who informed us that my sperm count was extremely low and that the sperm I was producing was not motile. This was likely due to an injury I sustained during my military service. Sally became despondent, and our intimate life came to a sudden end. I endured this situation for approximately 6 months before I reached my limit. I then sat down with Sally and informed her that I was moving out because it was clear that she no longer desired any intimacy with me. I am no longer willing to be a part of a relationship in which I am unable to fulfill the fundamental role of a partner. If you value the institution of marriage over the quality of our life together, then perhaps it would be better for us to divorce. Sally began to sob. I do not want a divorce. I do not want you to leave. I am simply so disappointed that we will not have children that I forgot the fact that you are my life mate. Please do not go. I will try to be a better partner. That will not work. Your trying to be a better partner is as much of a problem as we have now. I do not want you to merely try, I want you to want to be better. I will not be far away, and if you need me to do something for you, you can call me. I would suggest that we seek marriage counseling, but if you do not want that, you need to get counseling for yourself. Sally, you are the sunlight and stars for me. When I found out that I could not father children, I was hurt, but seeing you hurt is more painful. If the situation were to escalate further, we would consider adoption as an option. We can investigate fertility clinics to explore potential treatments that could be beneficial. It is challenging for me to continue sleeping in close proximity to a refrigerator, as you have been doing for an extended period. When I attempt to embrace you, you either recoil as if I were a threat or you are akin to hugging a post. It has been a significant duration since you have exhibited spontaneous affection, such as a kiss or a smile. I am deeply in love with you. I am not leaving solely because we have not engaged in sexual intercourse. I am unable to be in your presence when you are experiencing such distress, which is causing me considerable pain. After a brief period of silence, Sally inquired about my plans, my intentions, and my anticipated return date. She also questioned how I would know that I have improved if I were to leave. I assured her that I would remain in the city and that I would be available to her if she needed me. I will continue to work, and I will not abandon you. I love you. I am compelled to leave, as seeing you in this state of distress causes me immense pain. I am afraid that my feelings will turn into anger. My mother has informed me that I am welcome to stay in the apartment above her garage. Your mother and father have offered me an apartment in their building. I will not be far away. I implore you to seek help. I cannot bear the pain you are causing me. I will return when I am confident that you love me. I was sufficiently affected by her demeanor to avoid any physical contact. She lowered her head, began to sob, and then abruptly turned on me, shouting and screaming. Fine, she said, you can leave when things get tough. Just go. I was taken aback by her response. I immediately left the room and began packing my belongings. As I did so, I became aware of more than I loaded my vehicle with a few essential items, including the small trailer that we typically utilized for camping. Despite the trailer being less than a quarter full, I was hopeful that my absence would be brief. I drove the 20 minutes to my mother's residence and commenced unpacking approximately 2 hours later. My mother informed me that Sally was on the phone. I requested that she either take a message or have her call my cell phone. After that final tirade, I am inclined to believe that I do not want. I continued, I apologize for placing you in this unfortunate situation. Despite my affection for your mother, I find it challenging to express my feelings. I have been unable to engage in sexual intercourse with her since learning of my sterility. My wife desires a family, and I have offered to divorce her if it would satisfy her. However, I am uncertain about the best course of action. I am hopeful that my decision to move out will prompt her to reconsider. I believe that this will be sufficient to prompt her to recognize her own pain if it does not. I may be here for an extended period of time. I informed my mother good night and retired for the evening. The following day, 2 detectives arrived at the construction site and requested a meeting with me. They stated that they were following up on the burglary at my residence the previous night. I was taken aback when they explained that someone had attempted to force a basement window around 3, the time is 12 a.m. My wife contacted the police, and when the sirens drew near, whoever was attempting to break into the house fled. The officers inquired about the motivation behind the attempted burglary. I informed them that I possessed a number of inventions, including some that were still in development. I also mentioned that I had temporarily relocated and would be returning home later to assess the situation. The detective then revealed that they had decided to take my wife into custody. The hospital staff have diagnosed her with a psychotic episode. She is not currently in any danger, but the police officer who responded to the call said she was hysterical. She is now in the psych ward at City Hospital. The man she was with was told by her to leave the house. I will go over there immediately to see her. Do not worry about my belongings, they are not worth one hair on her head. I thanked the officers involved and informed them I would be going over to see my wife. I will do my utmost to rectify the issues. The fact that a male companion was present did not become apparent until the following day, when I arrived at the medical facility. I was informed that I was on the list of individuals prohibited from visiting Sally. I inquired as to who was responsible for creating this list and was told that both Sally and the attending physicians had contributed to its formation. I was further informed that my wife had placed me on this list. I was extremely displeased by this turn of events and resolved at that moment to take action. I returned to the apartment and spent approximately an hour in a state of passive protest. I then decided to take a proactive approach. I contacted the hospital and requested a conversation with the doctor. He responded promptly and informed me that I was also excluded from obtaining medical information. I was further displeased to learn this. I then contacted Sally's parents and informed them of the situation. They expressed disagreement with Sally's stance and promised to keep me informed. I proceeded to recount the events of the previous few days and also informed them that Sally's actions had led me to believe that my decision to move out was justified. I then allowed them to resume their activities. They proceeded to contact my mother, who had been employed as a paralegal until her retirement. I requested her counsel regarding the most optimal course of action for a divorce. I elucidated that Sally was effectively disengaging from my life, and that my actions might compel her to seek external assistance. I posited that, in the event of our divorce, she then provided the name of Carrie Collins, which I gratefully accepted. I thanked her and allowed her to resume her activities. I subsequently contacted the police and requested a copy of the police report for my insurance purposes. I was informed that it would be available within half an hour, but that I would need to. It was imperative that I collect the document in person, as electronic transfer was not an option. Upon retrieving the report, I noticed several inconsistencies. The broken window was described as 6 inches high by 24 inches wide, which seemed implausible. It would be virtually impossible for anyone to gain access through that narrow opening. Additionally, the footprints observed in the surrounding dirt were described as possibly female or child. This was also questionable, as it was unlikely that only one individual would leave such small footprints. Furthermore, the report identified 2 individuals present in the house, a woman named Sally and a man named John Walters. Both were described as being clothed only in robes. The name John Walters seemed familiar, but I could not recall where I had encountered it. The report indicated that neither occupant had seen who had attempted to gain access by breaking in. The female occupant was notably distressed about the fact that both names would be included in the police report. At this point, the individual in the house commented. I then called Sally's workplace and the phone was answered by a man named John. I apologized and stated that I had the wrong number. I then recalled where I had heard the name John Walters. He was a sales associate at the office where Sally was employed. I had met him on one occasion when she first started working there. I also remembered that his wife was the company owner. I was perplexed as to why he was at my house at 3, the time was midnight m. The following day, I contacted Carrie Collins and was surprised to learn that she was a woman. I scheduled an appointment for later that day. I then contacted my employer to inform them that my assistant could handle any necessary tasks, but that I would be taking the remainder of the week as personal time. My supervisor called almost immediately and instructed me to report to work immediately. I faxed my resignation less than 15 minutes later. My supervisor called back and apologized, granting me the time off. I then considered my options and sent a second resignation was submitted. No further communications were received from the workplace. Upon arrival at the office of the aforementioned Sally and John, a request for divorce was filed, along with a lawsuit against the company where they were employed. Additionally, an eviction notice was sought, given that the property in question was owned by my company and Sally held no interest in the enterprise. The rental agreement was with a company I had established to market my patents and gadgets. I presented a police report indicating that Sally had an uninvited guest at the residence at 3:00 a.m. Furthermore, I elucidated that I had temporarily departed due to internal strife within our relationship. The man was present on the same night that I left. Carrie informed me that, as Sally was under a 14-day mandatory hospitalization, she informed me that I was required to be hospitalized for a mandatory period and that my insurance would cover the costs. She stated that she would lift the medical information blackout or that I would not be able to authorize payment if I returned to the house immediately. She also advised me to cancel all joint credit cards, set up withdrawal limits on all joint accounts, and cancel any joint ATM cards. After completing these tasks, I returned to the house and found John attempting to gain access. When I parked my vehicle in the driveway and blocked his car, he began to approach me. I immediately contacted the police. I requested emergency assistance and asked to speak with an officer. John approached the vehicle and gestured for me to roll down the window. When I shook my head no and instead reached for my wallet, he took the opportunity to flee the scene on foot. I simply observed the situation and then inquired with the officers if they had any information regarding the damage to my residence caused by the break-in. The officers informed me that the only damage was to the window, which had been caused by a neighbor who had wandered into the driveway and, upon discovering that her key would not fit the door, had kicked the window. When it broke, she fled the scene. The following day, she called the station and informed the desk clerk that she would pay for the damages. I then proceeded to enter the house and explore the area that had previously been our bedroom. I discovered that the dresser drawers, which I had previously emptied, had been disturbed. The dresser drawers contained men's clothes. I proceeded to search all of the closets and dresser, removing all items that did not belong. I then transported these items to the garage, where we had a makeshift incinerator. I left the garage door open, anticipating John's return. He did, indeed, return, and I was in the process of placing the final load in the incinerator when he arrived. I greeted him with a smile. I inquired as to how I could be of assistance. He observed my actions and merely shook his head before entering and stating, "I imagine you deserve what you are doing." I had assumed that Sally was divorced. She had repeatedly asserted that you had left her for another woman 6 months prior. Consequently, you felt entitled to take up residence in the property. I am the tenant of this house, and Sally has not made any payments towards the rent. Therefore, she has no claim to the property. I vacated the premises 3 days ago. I informed him that I had moved out 3 days prior due to a financial freeze from my wife. I assured him that the situation was only temporary and that I would continue to engage with you and your wife. I then inquired if he would like me to move my vehicle so that he could leave. I proceeded to explain that when he visited Sally, he should inform her that upon her release, she would need to relocate to her parents' residence, as I intended to take possession of all her belongings. Furthermore, I informed her that I had now understood the rationale behind the freeze. I then asked how long she had been engaging in an illicit affair with my wife. He did not respond. Instead, he simply got into his vehicle and departed. I then returned to the house and contacted a locksmith. I spent the remainder of the afternoon preparing copies of the police report. I made one copy for my insurance company and another for Sally's parents. In the event that they attempted to ascribe responsibility for the issues to me, I placed a copy in our safe in the basement. I intended to deposit the original in my personal safe deposit box at the bank, which also contained all of the patent papers and a bank book. The money from my patent licensing agreements was the source of my livelihood, and approximately 10% of the patent proceeds were held in our joint accounts. This is the entirety of the financial information that Sally is aware of. While it is not a considerable sum, it is sufficient for Sally to be financially secure in the event of a separation. The hidden funds were intended to ensure that I would retain exclusive ownership of the property. Consequently, Sally was not privy to this information, as she would otherwise have sought to claim a portion of the assets in the event of a divorce. This would not have constituted a significant impediment to the dissolution of the marriage. The following morning, I proceeded to transfer all of Sally's personal belongings, including clothing, cosmetics, and other items. Toiletries, personal care items, and any photographs that did not feature me were placed into boxes that we had broken down and stored. When Sally initially took up residence, the locksmith arrived in the early afternoon and changed the locks. I transported all of the boxes to Sally's parents' apartment building and provided them with a copy of the police report. They expressed discontent, but they accepted the items I left. Carrie subsequently contacted me and informed me that the threat of payment was sufficient to elicit all of the medical information. It subsequently became apparent that Sally was approximately 6 weeks pregnant and had become distressed upon realizing that the police would be made aware of Mr. Walters' presence at the residence at that time. She then proceeded to scream at the officers who had arrived to investigate the break-in. The officers proceeded to restrain her and subsequently committed her to a 14-day psychiatric evaluation. During the psychiatric evaluation conducted on the following day, the patient experienced a miscarriage, which precipitated a significant psychological breakdown. The attending physicians recommended involuntary hospitalization for a period of 90 days, citing the patient's suicidal ideation and elevated hormonal levels, which were presumed to be indicative of fertility medication use. However, despite exhaustive efforts, no prescription for such medication could be identified among the patient's medical records. Given the circumstances, the pregnancy was the final straw. I informed Carrie that I wished to serve Sally after her release from the hospital. I also explained to Carrie that I am virtually sterile and that the sperm I do have are damaged. Furthermore, I advised her to file a lawsuit against the company immediately, as they have a clear in accordance with the policy. I advised her to pursue a course of action that would be both punitive and deterrent. The settlement included the termination of both parties with prejudice, along with the denial of any recommendation or severance package. The lawsuit against the company was filed without delay, and Mrs. Walters conveyed to Carrie, through her legal counsel, that they would contest it. Carrie informed the other attorney that we had evidence of unprofessional conduct on the part of both individuals. She did not bring up the pregnancy but did mention the police report indicating that John had been present at the residence at 3, the time is 12 a.m. Their attorney informed Carrie that he would respond at a later time, as his client had not previously disclosed this information. Carrie stated that she may not have been aware of this detail. When the lawyers met again, they reached a settlement. I received a fair amount of compensation, and John and Sally were both terminated from their positions. John's wife filed for divorce based on the police report, which stated that he had been visiting a customer site and had been there that night to start work early. I obtained all of this information. From one of the office personnel with whom Sally had been working, I was informed that Sally had left the hospital before the commitment papers had been filed. She was served on the sidewalk outside the hospital. She subsequently disappeared, and I did not hear from her for over a year. She did, however, sign and return the divorce papers, but she requested nothing from the marriage, not even the split that she was entitled to. Almost 15 months after the divorce was final, I received an apology letter from Sally. It was postmarked from a small town in Montana. She did not provide any details of her life after the divorce in the letter. The apology was merely an acknowledgement of the distress she had caused. John had an altercation with a baseball bat the day after I received the apology from Sally. It transpired that he had seduced the wife of a maid while he was in New York. I empathized with his predicament, and that brings this account to a close. If you found this account engaging, I would be grateful if you could express your appreciation by clicking the thumbs up icon. Please indicate your approval of this video by clicking the thumbs up icon and leave a comment below. Your feedback is invaluable to the algorithm that determines the visibility of my content. If you are a newcomer to this channel, I kindly request that you subscribe to my channel. Your subscription will greatly assist me in creating more content for you. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the future.